Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and it's that time yet again for another edition of Jason and the Gentleman. And as always, to do the show, we need the gentleman of mixed martial arts, the gentleman, Josh Hill. Josh, how are you doing?
Good, bro. Good. We're just talking. Finally got some nice weather, so it's feels
Yeah,
good. Yeah, not
yeah. You finally
minus
get, you
10.
finally can go out in a sweater or just a t-shirt, even at some points in the afternoon. So, RIP winter, hopefully, even though we're gonna get some snow towards the end of March or April.
Yeah, usually always it won't get a lot, but it'll get colder and a little bit. But I'm hoping the worst is behind us and we get some good weather finally, man. It creates such a friggin' difference, eh? Like the moods and everything, and just you feel so much better when it's sunshine.
For sure, yeah, definitely felt like even though it was like only 15 or 16 yesterday, it felt like
Yeah.
30 outside for some of the temperatures we've had. But yeah, I totally agree. It gets that positive vibe. That vitamin D brings a whole new life to you.
Yeah, man. It's important, dude. It's like that's why I always debate. I'm like, why do I still live where I do? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's so I mean I love the 4 seasons. I just wish winter was like 2 months.
Yeah, winter's only good for me for like Christmas, and then
Yeah,
once Christmas is over, it
I'm done with it.
sludges and yeah, the
Yeah.
depression and everything. But you know what? We're not. This isn't a weather podcast as much as I love talking about the weather and the changes of the seasons. But we got to talk some fights, Josh, and let's start with last weekend where we had another UFC fight night and a pretty entertaining fight night with some good fights as well. But this card was pretty much built around the main event of Derreck Brunson and Kevin Holland, and boy, the UFC really put the pedal to the metal on trying to market Kevin Holland with his ability to talk, even showing off like his shoe collection, and everything, trying to I guess make him relatable in that sense, but. The fight did not go his way at all. Just Brunson used his wrestling, took Holland down at will, and Holland spent more time trying to talk trash than maybe find ways to get back to his feet. But all in all, it was a pretty unanimous decision victory for Derreck Brunson. And I mean, for Kevin Holland, a talent, a guy that with marketability, but still needs to go back to the drawing board a little bit.
Yeah, I watched the majority of the fights and I started watching this and then I forgot something happened. I had to leave and I came back and watched kind of the end of it and it was kind of the same thing from what I heard the whole way through. Just Brunson, using his wrestling to get the win and that's kind of how I thought it was going to go. But yeah, I mean Holland, he shows that he's good for sure. He just, when you fight somebody with a pedigree of that, you know, um, wrestling caliber, it kind of shuts him down and kind of gave everybody a blueprint on just, how to beat this guy. So,
Yeah, I've seen like Daniel Cormier inviting him to come out to AKA to work on the wrestling. Even Khabib was there, giving him some technique and whatever he did tell him, he eventually got Brunson down to the ground. Did Holland, but that's too little, too late, and wasn't the game plan he wanted. But I just thought it was kind of a weird strategy where we Holland couldn't stop the takedown, but spent more time on the trash talking. And I know you fighters, you'll talk in there, but this is a guy that was more interested in talking and selling his gimmick as a talker than trying to find a way to win the fight. I felt.
yeah, that might just be I mean, I don't know for sure, but it just might be out of frustration, maybe. I know he does that even when he's winning fights, and maybe not. But kind of when you're just in your head, you're pissed that you're getting controlled and you're not really getting beat up, but like you're losing the fight. It just might be that like a sign of frustration of like you just want to talk shit to this guy and kind of make him feel, trying to maybe make him so frustrated and flustered to make a mistake, and kind of get off his game and kind of fuck with him mentally a little bit. And it's always worth a try. If not, if nothing else is working for you. But yeah, at some point, if you're just continuing to do that, and you gotta first and foremost try to find a way to turn the fight around, other than just talking. But just what he does.
But is there at some point his corner has to tell him to like stop with all the trash talking when you're down, find a way to get up or stuff a takedown because it seemed like there wasn't real much control in Holland's cage, and I don't want to disrespect them, but it just felt like Holland had Brunson had a blueprint and it just kept working, and there was no adjustments or any attempt tried to be made.
I think he's just going to do that regardless. Even if he's in that dominant position and winning, he's still going to talk like that. So I think him just talking, I think he's still trying to find a way up and trying to work, but it's just not working. But he's going to talk regardless of if he's on, the winning side or losing side. So I just think that's kind of who he is, and I think he's probably taken the gimmick now and like people know I do this, so I got to really do it. You know what I mean? Just to kind of differentiate himself from the pack.
Well, I get differentiating yourself, but the gimmick also works when you win. Like, it doesn't
Of
work if you're
course.
just the guy, if you're just talking trash and you lose, and especially in a fashion like that where you kind of got manhandled. I know he won, every judge gave Holland 1 round. I thought it was a clean sweep for Brunson personally, but I mean, it's something to go back to the drawing board for. I'm not off the hype train for him. Obviously, Holland has tremendous striking. And I mean, there's people talking about him going down to welterweight. He could. I still think there's a lot of potential for him at middleweight, but was kind of just blown away at him just thinking, or not really making much adjustments and like, chatting it up with Khabib. Like, it seemed like he wasn't taking the opportunity as serious as other fighters would be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a fine balance, between taking it serious and taking it too serious. You of course you want to take it seriously, right? It's a fight, it's your job, you're making money, you're doing this, but you also want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so that there's that balance point there that it's a hard, tightrope to walk because you don't want to be, too far on either side. So I get what he's doing. Maybe he was too far on the one side a bit more, kind of too lackadaisical, kind of too, relaxed and like anxiety in a fight is actually good to have. You don't want to have too much of it, but you don't want to have any at all either, right? So maybe he just needs a little bit more. Maybe this will help him. Maybe now he's lost a fight, kind of derailed his streak there a bit, and needs to work on his wrestling. So maybe this will be a motivation for him.
I think it will be a motivation for him. He seems kind of apologetic about his performance, realizing the opportunity. But last thing on Holland before we switch to Brunson, who I think we should talk about for sure. If you had a fighter like Kevin Holland with a performance like that, where spent more time trash talking, kind of playing around, making it, what do you try to say to them to get them focused?
It kind of depends on the person. Like if he just wasn't doing that regularly outside the cage and wasn't who he was, I'd probably be pretty pissed at him for just doing that because it kind of just shows a sign of just kind of like you've kind of given up mentally. Now you're just trying to, just talking shit, fuck with this guy, and you're not really, giving it your all to turn this fight around. But if it's somebody like him, that's his personality, and like I said, what he does it winning or losing, he's gonna do that anyway, regardless. But he just needs to work on the things that are, he's not good at or not good enough at yet. So I would just maybe say, okay, sit him down and be like, listen, dude, like you talk shit and when you win, it's all good. Everybody, it doesn't matter, right? But when you lose, it adds a level of humility or embarrassment or whatever you want to call it. So maybe, like I said, that sense will give him some more motivation to come back, and he doesn't really have to stop talking. That's just who he is. But he's got to back up that talk now even more.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it was a bad look too. You call for the fight with Brunson, and then Brunson kind of washes the floor with you. And I guess that transitions just now to Derreck Brunson, like a dark horse in this middleweight division that's, won, I believe now 5 in a row, and manhandled a guy on the hype train that Kevin Holland had. He had a finish against another guy that the UFC was building up, Edson Shabazi. And like, since Derreck Brunson's moved to Sanford MMA, this guy's one of the up-and-comer middleweights, like a guy that we haven't really given enough respect to, and seems like he's plugged some of the holes that he had a couple years ago when he was fighting the likes of, Machida and Adesanya.
Yeah, man, he's doing well. Looking good. His wrestling's been, he's probably his biggest factor, his biggest weapon. This fight and that last one with that Edmund Chabazian or whatever, how do you say his name? He's looked good, dude. He could be like, I don't know who you pair him up with next, with Gastelum, Whitaker fighting, and Vittori and Till. I don't know. Those 4 are taken. And Adesanya there. Maybe when what's his name comes back?
Paulo Costa. Yeah. And who Brunson did call out.
Oh, did he? Yeah, well, that makes sense. You know what I mean? With those other 4 guys kind of matched up and the champ waiting. That makes sense. Unless that Russian guy comes back and goes up to 185. But I think he's staying at 70. I'm not sure. The guy that said he retired and then now he's not.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who that is, but it seems like Brunson won.
Kazmat?
Oh, Chimaev. Yeah.
Chimaev, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is Swedish actually, but
He's Swedish?
yes, he is.
Oh shit! I thought he was Russian, man.
I think he's from there, but did emigrate to Sweden, so he represents Sweden on his banners and everything like that.
Oh, does he? Oh shit! I don't know. That's a Russian name to me, bro.
It is a Russian name, but Sweden, home to many immigrants from around the world. But yeah, it seems like Brunson does want Costa because, I mean, Costa is coming off the title shot, and that's kind of, I guess, where Brunson is. I still feel Brunson would have to win one or two more fights to really get the attention of the UFC and add a finish into one of them as well. But I'm just impressed with Brunson, a guy that's been in the UFC that long, has had some big dips, like you've won some fights, you're kind of working your way up, and then you fall off, and he has had to work his way back up, and now winning 5 in a row. Give Brunson all the credit in the world, because this is a guy that came over from when the UFC bought Strikeforce, and he's still there and has kind of found that rejuvenation in his career that a lot of fighters find, and he's found it right now and is rolling.
Yeah, he could be the next, Jan Blachowicz. He's kind of following that same train. So I mean, see if he can continue it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I'm happy to see that for Brunson. This was a pretty, we lost our co-main event in Gregor Gillespie the day before with COVID protocols, but I thought there were some solid fights on there, and I guess the other one interesting talking point coming out of there was the Montserrat Ruiz versus Cheyenne Bays, or Cheyenne Velismus, who, when we called her fight for BTC, So Cheyenne, obviously, she lost the fight pretty handily, but at the horn of the third round, Cheyenne made it seem like got up upset at Ruiz because she said that Ruiz spit in her face. Now I don't see that. I didn't see it personally. Maybe she's just said something to her, but I don't know, man. Like, spitting in someone's face, if that did happen, I would assume is a definite no-no, and there'd be a suspension from the Nevada Commission or some sort of talking to. But it just seemed to me she may have said something, and just Cheyenne wanted to show more fight than she could have ended up showing in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying she's a liar. I just didn't see anything happen, right? It could have just been, you're fighting. Maybe she fucking drooled on her, because when you're fighting a mouth guard, and who knows? I didn't see an intentional spit anyway, but I bet you it was just out of sheer frustration and because, she just got controlled. I'd say for, I don't know, 12 minutes of that whole fight, pretty much in the same position, and I could imagine that being very frustrating. And you get out and you keep going back right to that spot. So I would imagine it's probably out of some frustration.
Josh, those headlocks, though. I mean, it's kind of wild to see at the UFC level a headlock holding someone down.
Yeah, I know. It was frustrating. I mean, I could see it happening once. It was just a head and arm throw. That's all it was, right? So it was just stop pummeling in your underhook and just break free. You know what I mean? And you're out of there. Stop engaging in that position. When you give that underhook, she's going overhook, and she just steps around, and comes with the head and arm. So, and she kept getting stuck there. Good for the other chick. She pulled it off and kept going to it, and it worked for her. But yeah, man, just slight little adjustments, and she can win that fight.
Yeah, I mean, good for Ruiz too, because she took that, she's a well-renowned fighter, fought with Invicta, and took this fight on, I believe, a week's notice, due to Kay Hansen, getting sick or something and falling out. But yeah, I was impressed with that, just using the headlock to control. I think the last time I saw that was on the school playground. Yeah,
man, because like I said, that one, it's like, if you try to do that, a good guy or a good girl will usually end up taking your back. Just because it's so hard to actually get somebody, especially when you're sweaty and commit to it, and usually you end up in scrambles or you get your back taken. But yeah, she just ended up there every time. I mean, her stature probably helped because she was, she's a short, stocky little chick. So, but yeah, that's frustrating, man. You get stuck in there, round after round, and the same move.
Yeah, it was a tough night for the Bays family, obviously with Cheyenne losing, and then Cheyenne's husband, JP, lost in the opening bout in the prelims in second round. TKO at the hands of Bruno Silva. So, they were trying to make history as being the first husband and wife to win on the same card, and unfortunately didn't go their ways. But I know JP, he'll be back. He's got enough good wrestling base, and UFC still needs flyweights. And I know Cheyenne will be back. Like, that wasn't the performance she wanted to make in her UFC debut, but sometimes you need those kind of losses after the run she had on the regional scene and then winning on the Contender Series.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks. They're obviously both coming to win. It just it sucks that they didn't get a win in either of them. But yeah, man, that's the fight game, dude. It just shit happens and doesn't go your way sometimes. And at least they have each other there to kind of support each other in down times. Not just by yourself.
Yeah, and when we talked earlier about Kevin Holland's corner not really motivating him, that was totally opposite in the Grant Dawson Leonardo Santos fight, where his corner gave him a championship level speech, and then Dawson was able to get a standing hammer fist KO with a second left in the fight. And I mean, that just goes to show just how some people maybe feel maybe you don't super need a corner or whatever. What can a corner do? Well, there's what you see right there. A corner can motivate a fighter to go out there and get it done when it counts.
Yeah, I think it just all depends on the relationship with your corner. But yeah, 100%. A corner can definitely have some very, very valuable. And Krause, he's shown that he's definitely a good coach, man, and he's doing well with the guys, and his gym's doing well with the guys. With their recent track record, everybody seems to be popping off wins. Yeah, that fight, dude. I was rooting for Leo just because I remember going to Brazil and training with him out there years ago, and he's a guy I didn't realize he was undefeated in the UFC. He just hasn't fought because he's been out so many times for long periods of time. And I was like, oh shit, man, he has he's 7-0 or whatever he was in the UFC. But yeah, he's a guy that's been around forever, and I was rooting for him. Nothing against Dawson, but yeah, that fight, I think it was really close. I could have seen 2-1. Leo, I could have argued maybe the other way, but I think I think he was exhausted at the end, that last 10 seconds, and I think he just got a little bit too not lazy, but I guess he thought the fight was just going to be over, and he started wailing on him and caught him, and I think just rocked him and finished him off with those hammer fists in the second left, I think it was. So pretty crazy finish, man.
It was an insane finish, especially because I was for sure certain this is going to the cards and how close it was. There was kind of some debates going on, but I mean, hey, Dawson proved he didn't need it. Also, I guess the other interesting stat was it was Santos made his UFC debut when Grant Dawson was 9 years old.
Yeah, but no shit. Yeah, Santos been around, man. I think he's 40, 41, something like that. So he's been in the game for forever. As I said, I can't believe he has only had that little amount of fights in the UFC just because he's been there so long, right, and fighting so long. But yeah, that sucks for him, but that's great for Dawson.
It was great for Dawson. Dawson continues to, rise up the rankings there of the lightweight division. But I mean, that age discrepancy, though, not the biggest one I saw this past weekend for the BFL out in British Columbia, their heavyweight title.
Oh,
their
Lee?
champion, their champion fought Lee Mean, who's 53 years old. Lee made his debut in the year 2000 when their champion Kai Machado was 6 years old.
Yeah, Lee's just a dog, man. He's awesome. He just doesn't, he'll just keep fighting. I give him credit. Why not? If you can still do it, you still have fun doing it, and you're not getting absolutely destroyed and it's bad on your health. You know what I mean? Then why not, dude? He likes it. It's what he does, and he just runs a gym out in Alberta and has fun and fights still. And good on him. I know it didn't go well for him the past weekend, but
well, he didn't win, but he didn't look terrible. There was actually moments in the fight where I thought he could do that. Yeah,
I didn't get to see it. I just seen the results, but yeah, that's crazy, the age difference.
Well, I just love his mentality. It's Lee loves mixed martial arts when he's got a losing record, but still wants to compete and fight at the highest level and fight some tough guys. He's fighting a heavyweight champion that at least has eyes on him for Contender Series at least right now. So and I thought looked good for it as well. And I mean, Lee's he's an OG of Canadian mixed martial arts.
Oh yeah, for sure he is, dude. He's definitely an OG for sure.
Like I said, debut in the year 2000. So when Kai Machado was 6 years old, I was 10 years old when Lee became a professional mixed martial artist. But yeah, that was pretty much all the talking points coming out of the UFC. I mean, there's a couple prospects to look out. It was Adrian Yanez with a 27-second knockout in the third round against Gustavo Lopez. So Yanez continues to prove to be one of the better up and comers and one of the better stories as well coming out of last season of the Contender Series, and Macy Shaston as well.
Yeah, he looked good, man. He's looked good. He looked very calm. His combinations looked good. His boxing was crisp. That's a fight I thought he would win against Gustavo. Gustavo was trying to get it to the mat, where he had a better chance to win that fight. But I thought Yanez would pick him apart like that, and it was a great performance.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for a card that lost some fights and whatnot, I thought it really did deliver. Like with these prospects coming through, and the main event didn't go the way I thought it would, but it's great to see Brunson advancing his career.
Yeah, it was a shit card for name value. You know what I mean? There wasn't a whole lot of big names on there or really recognizable names, but overall there were some good fights for sure, and that's what you want, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can, transition to some of the news from this past week. We did lose our co-main event for this Saturday for the featherweight title of Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, a fight I was really excited for. I'm sure you as well were, Josh. But yeah, I guess Volkanovski tested positive for COVID or out due to COVID protocols. So that's super unfortunate. So that fight will get rebooked for a later day, but 10 times more unfortunate, especially for Volkanovski having to coming all the way from Australia and all their intense protocols for COVID to get back in and all for naught right now.
Yeah, man, that sucks, dude. Like this whole COVID thing is just ruining a lot of shit, and another fight ruined. But testing negative before he left, testing negative when he got there, and then doing another one later and getting positive. Like, dude, I mean, I'm all for like safety and whatnot, but like with the quality of these testings too, it's like there's so many false positives. Like that could just been another one of them, and that potentially just lost a lot of people a lot of money, like the UFC and those two fighters, which is brutal. But I mean, it sucks. It is what it is now. Like you can't do anything about it. But yeah, that's a fight I really wanted to see too. I think that would have been especially with Ortega, how he looked in his last fight versus a guy like Volkanovski, that's a good match, man.
Yeah, it's one I didn't know how it would go, because it could go one of two ways. Like Ortega could let his hands go, or just be a grappling presence from Volkanovski. And Volkanovski just finds ways to break down your game plan, right? So that's what he did against Holloway in those two fights. So I don't know. It's unfortunate, but at least it's going to be saved for a later date. And UFC, they're starting to pile up their summer cards, right? So expect that one to be co-main or main or an upcoming pay-per-view for, I guess, July or August maybe.
Yeah, that sucks. You got to wait that long. That'd be better if they could do it like turn around in end of April or something like that. But we'll see. I mean, I guess how.
Well, we know April. We know what that pay-per-view is, 261, which we talked about last week. The first show with fans with 3 title fights, and then late Thursday, it's happened. Josh, Khabib finally is retired, according to Dana White. I mean, it took from October till now for Dana to come to the realization that Khabib wasn't ever gonna fight again. And I think they even asked Khabib, was there any chance? He was like, no, not at all. I had no plans of ever fighting again. I mean, he could eventually in like a year or two, but as of right now, the guy seems just happy living his life, training at AKA, coaching the guys at AKA, and now we have some real intrigue for the lightweight title with Michael Chandler versus Bronx, Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, man, that's a cool fight. I really like. It was weird. I'm like, so that tells me one thing, that means Poirier's fighting McGregor again. That's really the only other fight there. Because if he's not fighting McGregor, then Poirier should be fighting for the belt. Yeah. Probably against Oliveira. If you're going by like who put the work in to get it. That tells me that Poirier's fighting Conor for a trilogy, and then they need somebody for the lightweight title. So Oliveira, I'm glad he's getting the shot. He's been around and he's on a streak. And then Chandler. I mean, he's a former Bellator champ, multiple time. Had a great debut against a top guy. He's a new face, so it kind of just throws some new blood in the mix there. And man, that's a good fight, a really good fight. I don't know how that's gonna go.
I don't either. I mean, we all know Dustin did take the option to fight Conor again. Obviously, the bigger paycheck is going to come with the Conor fight, and then negotiations are, I guess, stalled because this is what the UFC wanted to be the main event for 262 in May, but now have to do this title fight now with Oliveira, which I'm happy he does get because I literally thought of all the guys in the running, he'd be the odd man out.
Yeah, just for like namesake probably value, I would say, just because he's not. I mean, all like hardcore fans know who he is and know how good he is, but to the mainstream people that just kind of tune in once in a while, they probably wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have that the win against like all that win streak and whatever, but what he did to Tony Ferguson pretty much solidified he should get the title shot. And good. I'm interested in it being Chandler. I thought maybe Gaethje could be in the mix because I really just want to see Gaethje Chandler for just personal reasons because I think that's going to be one hell of a fight when it happens. It's not if, but when. But if there's any pushback on Chandler, like, we've talked about it many times, and I'll do it again now. Like, this guy, his repertoire in Bellator is unbelievable. Like, he's been fighting the highest level that they had for 10 plus years and pretty much passed every fight with flying color other than like a freak ankle injury at Madison Square Garden, or one of his last fights was against a featherweight, but like the best featherweight one of the best featherweights in the world in Patricky Pitbull. Like, I don't get some of the dismay. Like, he's only had one fight, but he's put in the work to get there and is one of the best free agent signings the UFC's ever had.
The dismay is from strictly UFC fans. You know what I mean? It's from the hardcore people that only watch UFC. They don't give a fuck about anything, any other MMA in the world. They just think that's all there is, right? So that they just see one guy comes in here, who's this guy, but yeah, man, he's been a top tier guy for friggin' almost a decade, with some huge wins over there. He's had some losses, but I mean, he lost to, like you said, to Pitbull, who's arguably the top or one of the top featherweights in the world right now. The ankle injury was weird. And he also lost another one. I think it was Ed Ruth beat him. And it just kind of Chandler just kind of looked like shit that night, to be honest. But other than that, he put together some big strings. I think he's a 3-time Bellator champ. Mm-hmm. And then he coming over there and then beating Hooker and beating him the way he did. Was a huge splash, right? So I'm all for. I'm a huge Chandler fan, so I like seeing him get the big shot. I love his style. He's explosive as hell, and that makes for an interesting fight with Oliveira because to see if he tries to keep it on the feet with him, because Oliveira, he's so slick on the ground, but his striking has been looking amazing too. Like, and he's been using his range very well. And Chandler's a shorter lightweight. So he might have difficulty getting in, but maybe utilize his rest. I don't know. But so Hooker was long too, and he got in on him. So, that's a good fight, man. I'm interested in that one.
I'm very interested in it as well. And I guess the other news with this card, UFC 262 in May, it's another show outside of the Apex and Fight Island. It's at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. So another event with fans. So it seems like the UFC will be having their pay-per-views going forward with fans in attendance.
Yeah, Texas, Houston, or Florida, the two spots that are living some life again. That's awesome, and we'll see how it goes with fans there. That's I'm happy to hear them, man. That's awesome.
Well, I know they'd wanted Texas for a while, but I thought Houston and Dallas were kind of a little, on the fence about it. But obviously not so much Houston because they're, running their another pay-per-view in Houston, the first pay-per-view since February of last year. Which, I mean, feels like 6 years ago at this rate. But, Houston's been a big market for them. I mean, and you look at this card as well, Tony Ferguson, Beneil Dariush, that's a pretty interesting lightweight bout as well. And good for Beneil to get this opportunity.
Yeah, that's that guy's one of those guys that just like, he's good, man. He's durable and he wins. And Tony's a big name and a big test for him. If he beats a guy like Tony, that puts him right up there amongst those top 5 guys we were talking about, really.
Yeah, and I think the run that Dariush is on, he's put on exciting fights and, getting some big wins. Jack Hermanson, Edmund Shabazian also on there. So, I mean, that's a pretty good matchup at middleweight where, maybe one of those guys fights Brunson, right?
Yeah, that's a Brunson fought that one guy already, right?
Shabazz, yeah, sorry, Shabazz, and he has fought, yes. But
Yeah.
if it's Hermanson, like I could see
Yeah.
that being a possibility.
That'd be a good match too, just because the wrestler versus more of the grappler, right? And just kind of see where that fight goes. Maybe it ends up on the feet.
Yeah, for sure. And Shane Burgos, Edson Barbosa at 145. So
That's
and Barbosa's looked pretty good at 445 too.
Yeah, that's a banger, and both of them are absolutely enormous for the weight class. They should just both of them should just say, let's just agree to not cut some weight here and just fight at 55 because they're both enormous. I don't know how they make 45, dude. Just because like I see some of the guys like I remember when Burgos fought Emmett, and I know Josh Emmett's a massive 45 or two, and Burgos even looked big, compared to Josh. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, man! I don't know how these guys are making this weight, but yeah, that's a good fight, really good one.
Well, you bring up the point on you're not sure how they make the weight, but they obviously have made it, and they've made it safely. But this past weekend, just to go back to it before we kind of look at some of the other fights that did get announced, but we lost a fight because a fighter went on the scales. That was Julia Stolyarenko. So she went on the scales to weigh in, fainted, and then got back up, and she made the weight, but then fainted again. And all the talk is ban weight cutting. And I don't necessarily agree with banning weight cutting. It's just got to be a way to do it safely, or, this does happen a lot, right, Josh, where you faint, but it's behind the scenes. This was more getting the eye on it because this happened right in front of cameras.
Yeah, I bet you if the public's seen how many times this happens when the cameras aren't rolling, there would be a bigger outcry, for sure, because this happens a lot, man. I mean, I haven't actually fainted, but like I've been to a point earlier in my career when I just cut weight just from like strictly sweating it out. Like I didn't diet, I didn't do anything properly. I felt like I literally stand there, I'm like, make the weight 135, okay, and then get off like before I'm about to pass out, to be honest. Or if you get up too fast after you're cutting a lot of weight, your balance is all off, and you kind of, you don't have your marbles, and you get a little vasovagal, they call it. But yeah, it's if I was, I would if I was as a coach, I think the coach should be there with them or really close by. There was nobody really by her, and she just kind of kept going backwards and fell like a poor girl, right? But like that's when your teammates or coach should kind of be there and just kind of making sure you're good and not letting that happen. I mean, yeah, she made the weight. I mean, I guess like why? I don't know. Why do you cancel the fight? Just because she fainted, I guess? Like,
well, she fainted, and then she made the weight, and then she fainted again, and the second faint was worse. Like that's when I think they made the decision after the fact, but I thought they should have canceled it right then and there. But all the talk has pretty much been ban weight cutting. Like, don't have weight cutting. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, if you're going to add more weight classes, sure, that's better for everyone. But this is the UFC. They're not going to do it. So there's just got to be ways where you can do it healthy or find, get another nutritionist or something like that.
Yeah, you can't just ban weight cutting because that what are you going to do then? So let's just, I don't know, say a guy is walking around at, 180, and he fights at 55. So he's not going to be able just to, how do you know if he's cutting that much weight too? You can't really monitor him throughout the whole camp, right? And see how much he's actually losing, what he weighs naturally or what he weighs outside of camp. So there's no way to really tell for that. And then if you add more weight classes, which I agree with, it's a good idea. Say you did every 5 pounds. So you're fighting now 175, and you lose a couple fights or whatever, and you're like, okay, well, I can do 170. And then you're like, oh, well, it's only another 5, I can maybe go down to 65. So you're still going to have guys that are going to try to get to be the biggest in the cage, again, in that weight, right? So that's not going to really, guys will just skip weight classes, you know what I mean, if they can make the lower weight. So that's not really going to get rid of it either. The way one does it, I'm not 100% familiar with. I know they have a percentage system about losing a certain percent of your body weight, which is pretty cool. I like that. I like to know more about it and see how they implement it. But like for me, I don't know. It's like if you got to do something closer to the fight, as far as weighing in. But I understand that like if you weigh in at 2 hours, an hour before the fight, and you're overweight, then all of a sudden the fight's off and fans are already coming. You know what I mean? So you can't just call a fight then. So it's so hard, man. It's such a tough place, and I wish there wasn't, to be honest, because it just sucks. Nobody likes doing it. Everybody's trying to get the edge. That's everybody's competitor in this sport, right? So they try to get every edge they can because at the highest level, it does make a difference. So it's a very, touchy subject, and there's no real right thing to do. I would just love everybody, fought at their walking around natural weight. But then you're gonna have guys that just say that that's their weight, and they're coming in, they're gonna cut a bit of pounds, and that extra 6-7 pounds in the fight could be the difference.
Yeah, I know weight cutting's never gonna go away, and I think just banning it, you're not really solving a problem, because then as you said, you'd add the weight classes, but you'd try to be the bigger, at 175 or 165 as you can be, and I'm for the more weight classes, but I just don't see the UFC doing it. It's been proposed to them, and Dana White's been pretty clear they're not going to do it. Other promotions have a 165, which I think is a great weight class, or even a 175 maybe, but it's not going to happen. I mean, we also don't know what she was weighing at before. She's a 135er. We don't know what happened. And sometimes, as you said, this does happen a lot, right? It's just getting the publicity, because she fainted twice on the scale. The only thing I was upset with was the commission. They could have cared less about calling that fight off. They were more interested in making sure she made weight so her opponent could have the fight. And then it was much later after the fact that they called the fight, when I thought they should have called it off after she fainted the second time. Call it instantly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm such she made the weight, you know what I mean?
She did make weight,
and she fainted, probably maybe because she got up too fast to go up on the scales, right? Which is going to happen. That's not to say she's not going to be fine to go tomorrow. So it kind of sucks for her because she made the weight, but now they're calling the fight. So she's going to lose money from this. And her opponent doesn't have a fight. So that sucks. The commission, I mean, the commission's just looking out. They don't give a shit, really. They just, any type of thing, they're like, oh yeah, you're done. The one in New York, I know a lot of times, I remember with the Holloway, they came in and just looked at him and said, yeah, you don't look good, you're not fighting. You know what I mean? There's no science behind it. They just, they're going on the seat of their pants. They're just a lot of commissions are bullshit. Some are legit, but some are just, they don't know, no idea what they're doing, right? So another option was, and this is not going to eliminate weight cutting, it's just going to be maybe more for a little bit more safety for the fighters, is having the weigh-in 2 days before the fight. So, I mean, you're still going to get guys cutting a shit ton of weight like you do now, but at least now they have 48 hours to replenish and to be, back to whatever weight they are. One of the biggest worries is not being fully hydrated properly like you should be going into the fight and then getting punched in the head, which could cause, easier knockouts or lack of performance. So with that extra time, that might, help that a little bit. So that's just another option.
Do you know why commissions don't do that 48-hour weigh-in? Because to me that seems like the best, safest option. If you're not going to eliminate weight cutting, have them weigh in 48 hours, and then by the time they're at the fight, they're going to be in the best, they're going to be hydrated the best they can be. They're going to be at least in the best shape they possibly can be going into the cage on fight night on a Saturday. I don't get why more commissions don't do that. Do you know why it's a thing like that?
I would assume it's probably cost, as far as
everything is
promotion wise too, because now you're going to have a lot of promotions, especially the smaller ones that don't have much money. They'll fly in a fighter sometimes even as late as the day of the weigh-ins, right, which sucks, which I never agree to, just because you're going to carry weight from the flight, and it's just not fun. So, but they usually fly in the day before, you weigh in, then you fight, they fly you home the next morning. So adding on that whole extra day of keeping you at a hotel, possibly, feeding you, dealing with more commission, paperwork, whatever they have to do in that meantime. So I'm assuming that's why it's just going to be more costly. But as far as, health-wise, it seems like a safer option.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the healthier option. But as you say, everything why things don't happen is money. It usually is always the answer right away is money. So I don't know. It would be something nice to see. It's better than what they used to do in the days of boxing, where it was same-day weigh-ins. I watched old Marvin Hagler fight. It was he weighed in today at such as, I'm like, that's just insane.
Yeah, that is crazy because you're gonna have people actually try to cut weight that day and fight the same day, which would be horrible, especially if you're cutting a lot of weight. What I could see them doing is like having like that window, okay, where you weigh in the day before and you have to weigh this, and then weighing you again the fight day, like
Yeah,
closer to the fight time, you can't weigh over this amount. And I think that's what one does. They do something like that.
there's
Um,
a promotion in Sweden that does that.
is it? Yeah.
So you weigh in, and then you have to like weigh in, but you can't be over X amount of weight as you step in the cage.
Okay. Yeah. See, well, that that might change shit. That might be a good idea where you can then you can't just bounce back. Like I've seen people jump like they weigh in at 35, 36, and then I see them they get in the cage at 61. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's crazy. So that would kind of eliminate that, and it might be more beneficial. I mean, I'm all for that. Like when I fight, I don't bounce back super huge, and I got my weight cuts down pretty good. But I mean, I still cut weight, but it's not like a super crazy amount of weight where I'm killing myself, the days leading up to it. But if I could still eliminate weight cutting, I would. It's not fun.
Yeah, I think maybe those are there's some options right there instead of getting rid of weight cutting. I just feel like that's such a this doesn't work, so eliminate it forever. Like that's just how we've become on a society on many issues. Just we don't like that, kill it, let's cancel it. The cancel culture of weight cutting is a thing we were trying. There people are talking about. I don't see it being but there as we've talked about, there are options. Same day, percentage weigh-ins or a 48-hour weigh-in in effect. Even like as we talked about more weight classes, I don't see that'd be like the last thing I could see happening, but there's options, and I think maybe the commissions and promotions should explore them.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. There's anything in this sport, it just like, especially with commissions, because most of them are old school boxing commissions.
Yeah.
It takes it's such a long process. Like anything political in this world, it doesn't happen fast. So I would expect the same here with this. It ain't gonna change anytime real soon.
I'm not expecting the time change anytime real soon, but just a thought to throw out there for when commissions can have more time to discuss these changes. Obviously, that's not maybe their top priority now, but I mean there were some other fights that were announced. Obviously, T.J. Dillashaw's back against Corey Sandhagen. I think that's an amazing fight. Especially at bantamweight. I'd be interested to see what TJ can do coming off the 2-year suspension. So I don't. I mean, it's great. Like Sandhagen wanted the fight, he gets the fight, so he can really, make a solidified statement. As this will hold him over as they kind of fiddle out between Jan and Aljo for the bantamweight title.
Yeah, man, I like this fight. Is a good one. Yeah, is a good. I'm glad it's happening. I know TJ from training with him, and as a person, he's a nice guy. I get along with him good, but he's a fucking cheater. You know what I mean? And that's just not like he had some tainted supplement or anything like that. Like that's EPO is like you decisively took this in your body to cheat and gain an edge. So I'm not for that, man. He only got a 2-year suspension, which I think is lenient for that. I would have been better if he got like more, 3 or 4. But I'm glad that they're making this fight. Him talking like he was gonna come back and get a title shot right away, I think that was absurd. After losing and then he lost at flyweight, but to being busted for cheating and come back and get a title shot, you're not gonna be rewarded with that. And I think this is more like, I'm not gonna say a punishment, but it's like a heavy test. They're going to give you the number 1 or 2 ranked guy in the world to kind of right when you come back. And I mean, winner is probably gonna get a title shot. But yeah, I do really like the fight. Stylistically, it's a interesting matchup. Sandhagen's been on a roll. He's super long for that division, tall, good grappling, striking's good, very confident right now. TJ's been off for 2 years, coming off a loss at flyweight to Cejudo. It's a tough fight, man. I don't know. I'm gonna lean towards Sandhagen just because I know TJ is good, man. He's very good, but I'm just gonna go with momentum right now and time off. I'm gonna go with Sandhagen.
I'd go with Sandhagen too, and there's so much more I want to get into the fight. I mean, this fight's in the beginning of May, so May 8th. So we have a couple weeks to look into it. There's so much to go into, especially like TJ coming back from the steroids and the issue of the steroids too, right? Like there's that whole window to look into. But I mean, as we're running a little short on time, we haven't talked about the big event this weekend, UFC 260 on pay-per-view. Stipe Miocic defends the heavyweight title against Francis Ngannou in a rematch where Miocic really controlled the fight against Francis Ngannou, like pretty much, showed a lot of holes in Francis's game. And, since then, Francis lost the awful Derek Lewis fight. But since then, he's like rolled off knockout after knockout, going a maximum of like a minute and 11 seconds in the cage against, former heavyweight champion Junior Dos Santos. So, that loss can teach you a lot of things. And I expect to see a bigger and better Francis Ngannou, but you can just never count out Miocic, right? Every time you bet against him, he proves you wrong.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Francis is just that big freak, that powerful juggernaut that just swings at you. Even if you look at his last fight, technically wise, it was
a bigger and better Francis Ngannou, but you can just never count out Miocic, right? Every time you bet against him, he proves you wrong.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Francis is just that big freak, that powerful juggernaut that just swings at you. Even if you look at his last fight, technically wise, it was pretty weak, as far as like, you wouldn't want to show that to a fighter and say that punch like this, you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter because he's so big and strong. If he hits you, you're going to sleep, man. He's just that powerful, that athletic. Yeah, I'm sure he was just, felt he hit the guy and he's going in for the kill. But a guy like, Miocic, man, he's so tough, durable, proven why he's a champ, very skilled. This fight is going to be, different. Miocic out-wrestled him, tired him out-wrestled him, and made him miss. I think that was the biggest thing. Missing in a fight tires you out more than, just, hitting the guy and blocking the punch. So he made him miss a lot in that fight, especially later. And I think that was a big factor. I think you're going to see a little bit more cautious, both guys, to be honest. Stipe is going to, avoid the power. Obviously, he's going to look to mix it up, use his striking to get under the hips and get the wrestling. And then Francis, I think, is going to not just going to kind of go, berserk and Hulk smash. He's going to look to kind of pick his shots. You might see more like kind of like what Derek Lewis did to Blades, where he kind of he knows he's going to take him down, so he might be a little bit, keep his hips back a little bit, which for Stipe might open up more shots on the feet. So interesting match, man. That's two huge men, the heavyweight, colossus fighting each other, and it's always exciting, especially when you have a guy like Stipe, man. He's just how could you not like him? He's such a good dude.
He's a talented mixed martial artist, arguably on paper like the greatest heavyweight champion the UFC's ever had, just on the amount of title defenses, and not only losing the title against Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier, but winning it back and then beating him again in a rematch. I don't know, like Miocic, I respect him a lot. This guy, he's durable. He's one of the lighter heavyweights, and I think that gives him that extra bit of gas as we go into championship rounds. And we're not sure about that with Francis. He only lost that, really went into championship rounds in the last time he fought Miocic, and then he fought Derek Lewis, but they did nothing for the that was 15 minutes. So I don't know, but I think Francis has learned and made the adjustments. I'm going to pick Francis because I feel I just can't bet against that power. And I know that's just, the cliche thing to do for a heavyweight. Yeah. And if Miocic wins, like, we can instantly cement him as the best heavyweight in UFC history. But I just think Francis has made the adjustments. He's going to find a way to stuff some of these takedowns. And I think he'll just find a way to connect on Miocic.
Yeah, man, that's not a bad bet and a bad pick. I feel that, and especially Miocic has been in a lot of wars. Since that fight itself, he took a lot of shots from him, from a big man like that. And then the Cormier fights, all three of them. He's had other fights in between there too. I can't remember exactly who, but man, he's been in there. He's been hit a lot. And an improved. I know Francis trained at Extreme Couture. Now he's been there for a while, so I know those guys have been working on his game. Yeah, man, and all it takes is one with the heavyweights, especially a guy like that, though. My heart is picking Stipe. My head, Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm gonna go. I'll do the same as Francis. I think might connect with him in this one and put him to sleep, but I'm really hoping not.
It's just the thing with these heavyweights where they have, especially a heavyweight with so much power in the punch that Francis has, where like he could be losing the fight for 24 minutes and 50 seconds, and just that one punch is going to end the fight because he's got like that Mike Tyson ability to just hit you and rock you and end your night. And I think if he wins, like we're talking about one of the most marketable heavyweights that the UFC's had in 10 years since like Brock Lesnar was the champion.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as looks wise, yeah, as far as appearance, because he's so big and looks like a superhero. But yeah, he's got that crazy power, man. He's a genetic freak.
Plus, he would if Ngannou is to win, he would be the third fighter on the active roster to be a champion representing Africa, with Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and then Francis Ngannou representing Cameroon.
Just breeding athletic freaks over there, man. You know what I mean? Just I mean, yeah, that's all it is to it. They're just athletes, man, and they know how to compete.
I just think it would be super cool to see like three champions from Africa in the UFC when the UFC's at its peak with athletes in it. And when COVID's over, they have to, if these champs are able to be the same by the end of a year or maybe even another half year, and they can do a show in Africa, they have to do it. They have to do it with all these three.
Yeah, I mean, I regardless, with them for sure, but like even without, they gotta get over there, and that'd be cool, man. I don't think any big promotion has done a show over there. I don't think, have they? Like I know Bellator hasn't, UFC hasn't.
No,
one's in Asia.
Yeah, no major promotion has. Like only the African smaller end shows have run stuff there, obviously. But
EFC is over there, I think it is.
Yeah, so there's EFC, but that's an South African based promotion, right? So no one has ever made the cross to Africa. So I think that is definitely on the table, and I think that'd be one of the biggest and coolest moments in the sport. The other fight that we have as a co-main event now, as we lost our featherweight title fight, Tyrone Woodley. This is a make-or-break moment for him against Vicente Luque. Luque's a very durable welterweight, on a two-fight win streak with wins over Nico Price and Randy Brown. But, if Tyrone wants to prove that he's still, a championship quality guy, he has to find a way to win this fight.
Yeah, and he has to go back to his roots, man. He's got to wrestle. He's got to do what, his best attribute and what brought him to the dance and what he's explosive as hell and his striking is good. Of course, but you're fighting against a guy where his biggest weapon's his hands. So don't try to box with him. I really hope he doesn't. Obviously he has the power to knock anybody out. He's a champion, world ex-champion, and a world class athlete, and is so explosive. But mix it up a little bit on the feet to get his hands up, but utilize your wrestling in this fight. I think that's his best way to victory. And for Vicente, the opposite. Use your range, stay long, pick them apart, make them make mistakes, and look to capitalize them coming in.
Yeah, for me, I think for Tyrone Woodley, I think he has to use the wrestling to get the confidence back. His last couple fights, he's kind of looked like a shallow man in there. Like he's lost a little bit of that luster that got him to the heavyweight title or the welterweight title. Excuse me.
Yeah, man. He just that shit kind of can happen, and it sometimes you get in a slump. It's hard to get out of. But the biggest thing is kind of your mentality within it. A lot of people I was just reading a book the other day. One is talking about a golfer. He's lost 4 in a row, and he's in this huge slump. And he had a big smile on his face going on for his next round. I was like, "What are you laughing about? You just lost 4." And he's like, "Yeah, but I'm due for a break anytime soon now." Then, and if you kind of have that mentality with the work behind it, obviously, I think he can still be successful. But it's a very tough match, man. You got to be very smart in this one.
Yeah, and I wish him all the best because everyone's calling for him to retire and whatever after the Colby loss. I mean, Colby's a tough guy to fight. Obviously, there's so much animosity, but
he's also lost to 3 killers. The top guys in the division right now.
He lost the title to the guy that's now the champion. He lost to the guy that just fought for the welterweight title, and then he lost to a guy that also just recently fought for the welterweight title.
The top 3 guys in the division, so it's not like he's going out there and he's losing the number 20 ranked guy. You know what I mean? It's like, those are killers. Let's give him a break here.
For sure. I just want to see kind of that sparkle back in his eye a little bit more than anything. Like win, lose, or draw. If he just has that look in him and kind of loves what he's doing, because it just seemed like it was just a job, like he was punching a clock, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. And I could see maybe, especially with, I know his relation with the UFC been, pretty rough. And so it might have, just kind of put a sour taste in his mouth and wasn't really enjoying it as he once used to. And that can kind of change your mentality in the fight, which is for the worse. So, it'd just be good to see him having fun in there and just, have his confidence back. And man, tough match though.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Every time we do this show, Josh, we always have fun. And as we're going to wind it down here, the last bit of not really news, but as an anniversary of arguably the greatest match in WrestleMania history, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. Maybe the closest fight atmosphere that they've ever had for a pro wrestling match in the World Wrestling Federation, now Entertainment. Just rewatching it back, just the atmosphere and everything like that, and a star-making performance for one Steve Austin.
When was that? What year was that?
1997.
97. Oh shit! Right in the peak time of wrestling.
Of being a kid, also.
yeah, 100%, right? But yeah, that's awesome, man. It's I wish wrestling was still like that at that time. Maybe it's just because I was a kid, but even still, everything's so out in the open now. There's the characters were that was who they were. It was the kayfabe thing back then. You didn't know any different, and it was just such a good show. You know what I mean? It was. The athleticism was amazing, but the performance they put on and make a show out of it is so cool. And I miss those days for sure.
Yeah, I think that was also the peak where it was kind of the end of the true kayfabe, where you're gonna protect your character always, but you're kind of blend in some realism, so you're not sure what you're gonna get. So that's an era that's definitely gone, where it's kind of back to what you see on TV is what it's been scripted or whatever. Nothing really out of the norm happens, but yeah, that was just a time that's the match, if you haven't seen it, that pretty much made Stone Cold Steve Austin to the biggest ass kicker that pro wrestling and really combat sports had seen for a while.
Yeah, and I just think as far as I'm not saying the wrestlers now are incredible for sure, but I just think for character wise, at that time there were just the characters they had, man, between WCW and WWE. It was just friggin' loaded. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm starting to become the old man. It's remember when there was two companies that were actually head to head, and WWF wasn't the number one promotion for a good portion of time? It's crazy. That's now almost 30 years ago as we're approaching. I feel so old, but
feel old. I feel old. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I think back on, I think the 90s was 10 years ago. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. But
yeah. In my head, for sure.
2021 now. It's it's not good.
It's hey, you're gonna turn 31 this year, so that's how I feel.
Yeah, so, I'm a few years ahead of you, bud. So that I'd like to be 31 right now.
Well, nice to end off on the high note, reminiscing about the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. And if you haven't seen it, anyone, go out of your way to go watch this match, because it'll make you a wrestling fan, even if you're not a wrestling fan.
Yeah, do it up, man.
All right, Josh. Well, thank you once again for your time, and we'll be back next week to break it all down for the fallout of UFC 260. And once again, before you go, plug your social media, plug your Instagram.
Yeah, at Gentleman J Hill, still just Instagram, Facebook, no Twitter. Yeah,
and I'll give a shout out to Kyron Cameron getting a win, going 5-0 at BFL with a heel hook submission.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to mention that. I totally forgot. Yeah, congrats to Kyron. That's a big win, going out to the BFL out there. And yeah, heel hook. Yeah, who would have thought that? I wouldn't have called that one, but that's awesome.
Yeah, for a guy that calls himself a striker, last two wins by submission, one by Bravo choke for BTC 9, and now BFL 66, a heel hook submission. So
yeah, he's not a striker. He's a well-rounded fighter now.
Oh, he definitely is, but he calls himself a striker, so. He's just putting the kayfabe on his opponents.
Yeah, hey, yeah, say it. Say you come from a Muay Thai gym and that's all you do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Josh, thanks for your time as always, and we'll be back same bat time, same bat channel next week to break it all down. Peace out, everyone.